I am here at the studios of KALW and just did a show on your call about Elias Castillo's new book, A Cross of Thorns, The Enslavement of California's Indians by the Spanish Missions. I'm also joined by Valentin Lopez, chair of the Amah Mutsun Tribal Band of Costanoan Ohlone Indians, which stretches from Santa Cruz to Monterey and inland to Mission San Juan Bautista. And thank you both for sticking around for this quick chat. This is really a horrific book about the history of California's missions. It's sadistic and it is brutal, but we really need to know about it, especially because the Pope is coming to the United States on September 23rd to canonize priest Junipero Serra. It'll be the first time the Pope will perform a canonization ceremony on U.S. soil, and I really think this information needs to be exposed because most people don't know about it. First off, Elias, you've been doing research for 7 years on this. Why did you decide to tackle this issue?
Well, it was time, as Val has said, to tell the truth. And one thing is that the book itself is not sadistic. The people that I described in it were sadistic.
Yes.
And the other thing, too, is that I need to say is that everything in this book is irrefutable evidence. No one can say they did it because I took the words out of the letters they wrote, that Sarah wrote, that the friars wrote, and that visitors to the missions themselves. I found those. Took 7 years to find all of that, but I did find it. It all started with an op-ed I wrote for the Chronicle, and what happened was that Senator Barbara Boxer it was quoted in the San Francisco Chronicle on a story in which she said that she was seeking funds, $10 million in matching funds to help restore the missions. Nothing wrong with that. Fine, restore them. But when I wrote an op-ed piece in which I said that thousands of Indians were tortured, burned to death, beaten, and died in the missions, and that we should be very careful about that, and that if they did this, if this bill went through, then what needed to be done was that all of the graves in which the Indians are buried, and there's thousands and thousands of them buried around each mission, in unmarked graves. No one knows where those graves are. But at San Juan Bautista, if you go walk around there and you walk very carefully, you will sometimes see human bones sticking out, finger bones, as Val does when he walks around. He always keeps his head lowered to look for those remnants, the remains of those Indians. And that's what all the missions have around them. Of course, they will never allow you to dig around and find out where these graves are. But what I said was, if you do that, then all of these graves should be identified, carefully marked, and with signage saying, this is the site of... There's no names on these. These were just... They would dig a hole and dump maybe 3 or 4 bodies in them. So, and that signage should be accurate. The Indians did not flock to the missions, rather, as the signage on the Catholic missions say. They did not flock there. They were forced in there. And they died there, as Father Mariano Payeras, who finally said, we've got to do something about this. This is terrible what we've done. We are going to be blamed for the deaths of the Indians.
Valentin, what was it like for you to be involved in this process and now to do interviews to expose the truth about how Indians were treated at the missions?
Without a doubt, it's long overdue. I remember growing up, we knew within our tribe that who we were and what our we had a lot of oral stories that we carried forward, but we were never allowed to tell the public we were Indian. I was not allowed to tell my friends, my schoolmates, my neighbors, etc., that I was Indian. Every time I would leave the house, my aunts or my grandma or somebody, remember, always say you're Mexican. Never say you're Indian. We had to hide our Indian identity. because that's what they learned. That's what my grandparents learned from their grandparents when they were little children. You know, whenever you have laws of, when you have the mission period followed by the Mexican period, which was equally brutal as the mission period, then the American period, where you had an executive order of extermination. They were paying bounties. They had they legalized kidnapping of Indian children. They had indentured servitude, which is slavery. That right there is the way my grandparents grew up, being aware of that and being told that. And so, you know, they just passed that on. And then also they did not read or write. They all signed their name with an X. And so they never stood up, and our voice was never heard. I had a reporter ask me recently, well, why are you guys coming forward now? Why didn't you come forward 30 years ago or 40 years ago? Why did you wait so long? Well, the reason that we had to wait so long is that it took this long for our members to be able to step out and speak up for ourselves, and to to learn to learn a lot of what the textbooks were saying, to realize that it wasn't the truth, and to get the confidence. Mm-hmm. You know, the majority of our members will not speak up in public, but I have their full backing authority from them to speak on their behalf.
Well, there's also so much trauma. I mean, this is not easy to talk about.
Oh, absolutely,
right?
Absolutely. The historic trauma, you know, goes on for century after century, and it just, you know, and it just passes on.
Yeah, we have to do a show about that.
Mm-hmm. One thing I'd like to say is that as far as the slavery in the late 19th century, and this lasted until 1860s, 1870, is Indian children. There were these rogues who would go out and raid Indian villages in the 1860s. They would kill the parents and then herd the children to auction blocks in some of the small mining towns of California near Sacramento, and sell the children. And the going price for a healthy Indian youngster child was $150.
For the male.
For the male.
The female was $300.
Mm.
Wow.
Yeah, and so that was going on in California until finally a federal agent saw what was going on and finally got the federal government to stop that. But it didn't do. It went underground at that point. So it's a terrible situation. This has been going on from 1769 to about 1890. Tremendous.
Because the Pope is coming to town to canonize Junipero Serra, the media are writing about this, but they're using the word controversy. This man is controversial. I mean, Val, how do you make sense of that?
Well, you know, if people know the truth, they will see that there is no controversy at all. And that's the problem. The Catholic Church put their stake in the ground. You know, they said at the closing of the missions, they said, we have to come up with an excuse. We have to come up with an alibi for what we did. And they created the story that the Indians came willingly to the missions, that the Indians came to the missions for a better life. They came to the missions to learn agriculture. They came to the missions to find God. That Father Serra treated the children with the Indians as if their own children, etc. You know, that was the alibi that the church created to cover up all the atrocities, the deaths, the rapes, the whippings, the beatings, the slavery that occurred at the missions. That was the cover-up. And then whenever the California school system is developing, they want to teach the history of California. They want to teach California histories in the schools. So where do they go to, you know, and it starts with the missions. And so they go talk to the priest and about the mission period, and that's exactly what they learn. They put that in the textbooks. And so now then, for 4, 5, 6 generations, they're learning those very same things that the church wants them to learn. And that is what we are having to overcome. Elias and I and others who are opposing the canonization are having to overcome, you know, all the churches cover-up and the states perpetuating that cover-up and such. So we are having a very hard time getting our point out. And everybody now wants to look at this, like you said, as a controversy or as a debate. Well, is Sarah a saint or Sarah not a saint?
Right.
If people just looked at the truth, the absolute truth, and that truth is in Sarah's own handwriting. It's not stuff that we are creating or that we are fabricating. Elias's book, A Cross of Thorns, clearly makes that evident. It is in Sarah's own handwriting. But yet, the Catholic Church refuses to point to Sarah's handwriting. They want to perpetuate telling the story as they created it.
Well, I hope people read this book, especially right now as the Pope is coming to town and the media is reporting on this. Elias Castillo is author of Across of Thorns, The Enslavement of California's Indians by the Spanish Missions. Valentin Lopez is chair of the Ohlone Indians, and you can find our full-hour conversation right under this posting. Thank you both so much for coming in, and thanks for exposing the truth.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.